Fun night last night. Rutgers continues to be a really cool story.
If Rutgers could play at home every game, I would bet on them to win the Big Ten.
Yeah, that is for sure. Jersey Mike's Arena has turned into a hornet's nest, and the latest team to find out about it, Ohio State. That is our big story here tonight, or today, I guess, more accurately. Rutgers taking down the Buckeyes 66-64 last night as they ended a four-game skid against the Bucks. Geo Baker led the way, 25 points, 6 assists. It was the Scarlet Knights' second straight win over a ranked team. First time they've done that since 2008. They ended the game on a 10-0 run, holding the Buckeyes to one of their last 12 from the field. Rapheal, finishing kick, unbelievable. What do you make of the way that Rutgers finished the game, really both ends of the court?
Yeah, when you have a team that's bought in defensively, every coach works on it. Can you get 3 stops in a row to win a game? Can you get 3 stop and scores to win a game? In those last 3 minutes, Rutgers believed in their defense. They cut Ohio State's water off. They got 3 stops in a row, 3 scores in a row. Ohio State goes 0 for 7 in the last 3 minutes, couldn't get the ball to E.J. Liddell. So when you can close out the game defensively, you can hang your hat on your effort. You're playing hard. They beat Ohio State up in the paint. And when you think about Ohio State, Zed Key, E.J. Liddell, Kyle Young, to be plus 14 in the paint, plus 14 in transition, they did all the little things to come out with that victory.
And as you say, I mean, defensively, they were just impenetrable there at the end. I mean, Ohio State, one of its last 12, and we're talking about the 5th most efficient offense in the country. So this is a really tough group to slow down. Now, there are some Ohio State fans who might say, well, they didn't really stop them on the last play. They certainly believed there was a foul on the Justin Arns play. Let's take a look at that one. Tell me what you see here.
He definitely hit his hand on the follow-through. I think it's a foul. I think you have to let the shooter land comfortably, don't be in his space. But for Ohio State, it shouldn't have come to this point. You're up 8, 4 minutes to go in the game. You got 2 of the better players in the conference. E.J. Liddell is a player of the year caliber player. You've got to find a way to finish this game out. When you're on the road, especially in the Big Ten, it's a tough environment. You've got to win by 10. Take the referees out of the game completely so it doesn't come to that.
And Chris Holtmann said as much, I thought, in the postgame. I thought he handled it really well. I was looking through it today, and he essentially said, you know, look, there were some fouls maybe that we believe could have been called that weren't called, but ultimately it comes down to we didn't stop them and we weren't able to score, and we have to figure out a way when you've got an 8-point lead here in the closing minutes to close it out, and they were unable to do it. And again, a ton of credit there goes to Rutgers. So now we're talking 4 quad 1 wins for Rutgers, right? I mean, they beat Purdue quite notably when Purdue was number 1. They beat Michigan State and Ohio State now consecutively at home. They have a win over Iowa as well. When you look at this team, they're going to be a fascinating kind of bubble story, and Andy certainly was advocating quite passionately for them last night on our show. What do you think this team needs to do to be an NCAA tournament team?
They've got to just keep winning. Take it day by day. Don't jump over the fight. Go out, play Rutgers-style basketball. Defend at a high level. Be tenacious, rebound the basketball, get out in transition and run. That's 2 games in a row. They beat Ohio State in transition. They beat Michigan State in transition, and they're winning in the paint. And they're starting to make shots, but they're figuring out Ron Harper didn't have that great of a game against Ohio State, but they won the game without him through their defense. So if they continue to play defense at this level, get 3 stops in a row multiple times throughout a game, they're always going to have a chance to win at the end. But don't jump over the fight. Take it 1 game at a time, win the first one, then win the next one, and just keep winning and play winning basketball.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Their game against Northwestern, which they lost last week, although they made a furious comeback and nearly won it. And I had been talking to Steve Peichel beforehand about, you got 5 straight games against ranked teams. You need to win this one. And his idea was essentially, look, we're just, we don't think about it in terms of 5 straight games against ranked teams. Because I think if you did, you get overwhelmed, right? It was more kind of, hey, what do we need to do to beat Northwestern? And then what do we need to do to beat Michigan State? And then what do we need to do to beat Ohio State? And while they weren't able to succeed on the first one, they've succeeded on the last 2. And I guess you just have to look at it. I mean, they still get Illinois at home. They still get Wisconsin at home. I mean, those are opportunities for them, Rapheal, because of, to your point, as we look at the schedule, they actually play Wisconsin twice. They've got them on the road coming up here on Saturday. But again, that game against Illinois, and then as you can see, they have the Badgers in Piscataway as well. this is what they need to do. I mean, they need to prove kind of beyond a doubt that they are the team that's knocking off quad one opponents and not the one that slipped up a little bit early in the year. So I almost think this aligns perfectly for them, certainly given how good they are at home, that they have those two opportunities to beat teams that are competing to win the Big Ten.
No, I definitely agree. When you have these type of opportunities in front of you, you just take it game by game. You're playing at home. You're comfortable at home. They're going to have to find a way to win on the road as well to help their resume. But I definitely think they have the opportunities. I think they can get Illinois at home. I think they can get Wisconsin at home, all because of their perimeter defense. When you have Paul Mulcahy, your point guard, he's 6'7", 215, he can switch four ways. And you think about Illinois, that's a mismatch nightmare for Illinois. You're going to have to put Jacob Grandison on Ron Harper Jr. So he's going to have to hit Ron Harper Jr., no offensive rebounds. I'm curious to see if Rutgers will put him in the post more. I mean, Plummer will have to go on Paul Mulcahy. Mulcahy likes to post up. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out matchup-wise. But when Rutgers is at home, that's a tough team to beat.
That is for sure, and Ohio State learned that. Now, Ohio State has been struggling a little bit on the road. They've lost 4 of their last 5. What do you take from this game from the Buckeyes' perspective?
I just think they got to execute down the stretch. You have too good of an offensive team to not get your best player to basketball in the last 3 minutes, to not get a field goal in the last 3 minutes. They've got to figure out a way to execute down the stretch. But then Malachi Branham, E.J. Liddell had good games. You've got to get a third guy, especially on the road in the Big Ten. You need that third scorer to come in. He doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be great, but be efficient. Zed Key gets 10 points, but he gets 13 shots to do it. That's a win in Rutgers' book. I mean, Clifford Morey goes 6 for 6, 13 points. He hasn't missed a shot in 2 games. They've got to get some resistance down in the post, not let your opposing post player dominate you that way. But I think Justin Arns needs to shoot the basketball. He had a good game 2 games ago, 4 for 7 from 3. He only takes 2 this game, makes 1. They need that type of shooting to open up the floor for E.J. Liddell, Malachi Branham, because you saw Rutgers just collapsing on E.J. Liddell, collapsing on Malachi Branham's dribble into the lane. They need that safety release to kick out, make some shots, and get them going.
And their schedule's challenging here because, remember, they had several games that were postponed. There's still one that needs to be made up, needs to be put on the schedule, the game against Iowa. But you see, we've talked about the road struggles. They've got to go to Michigan. They've got to go to Illinois, to Maryland. Again, they play the Wolverines twice, but coming up here Saturday on the road, there will still be a game thrown in there against Iowa. And I think really one of the big things that stands out is just how many games they still have to play. Rapheal, they're playing some games here in rapid succession, going to be a little bit more of a NBA-type schedule.
Yeah, definitely going to be an NBA-type schedule for them. But they have the guys to do it, I believe. When you have one of the better players in the conference in E.J. Liddell, also one of the better leaders in the conference in E.J. Liddell, that's what you want. And guys want to play basketball games more than they want to practice. So it could be a little fun for the guys. They don't get to beat up on each other in practice every single day. They get to go out, play basketball games, and continually play and get better. But I always think when you have one of the better players on the floor, game in and game out, E.J. Liddell, you're always going to have a chance no matter who you're going against. Thinking about the game against Illinois, do you put Jacob Grandison, DeMonte Williams, who guards E.J. Liddell? That's going to be a problem for Illinois. But I think they have a tough schedule, but this is a tough team. They're hard coached. And I think they could pull out some of these wins.
Yeah, he is a really challenging matchup just because of the way that he has expanded his game and the degree to which he can take guys outside. This, by the way, their first loss outside of Quad 1. This is technically a Quad 2 game. You want to talk about difficult Quad 2 games? I would say going to Rutgers is one of the more difficult Quad 2 games in the country. Let's talk a little bit about the other game last night, too. Certainly significant for Nebraska to finally break through. They were 0-12. In the Big Ten. I'm guessing they had circled the home games against Northwestern and Minnesota and said, hey, these are games we should be able to get, and then just got absolutely pummeled by Northwestern over the weekend, a game you were at. Mm-hmm. I think it speaks volumes about, and I said this last night, like, if you follow up your worst game of the year with your best game of the year, to me, from the outside, it says, hey, these guys still believe and they're bought in and they're listening to what Fred Hoiberg is saying.
And it's a testament to Coach Hoiberg. He's gotten those guys to play hard. I mean, they had a disappointing performance effort-wise against Northwestern, but to follow that up and come in that game against Minnesota, dialed in, ready to play from the jump, they get 9 steals in the first half. And Minnesota's a team that averages less than 10 turnovers. So you're understanding the scouting report, you're playing passing lanes, but you're playing hard. Minnesota goes 0 for 9 from 3 in that first half. This is a team who's made 10-plus threes in their last 2 games coming into last night. So you can see Verge, Trey McGowan's, they were bought in on the perimeter. Jamison Battle didn't score in the first half.
Yeah.
Latman was bought in. That was just a complete effort defensively. Normally, Nebraska would try to outscore you. They'll try to run and gun with you. But last night, they were bought in on the defensive end. They forced 18 turnovers, which got them 25 points off of those turnovers. So when you can defend it that way, they've got to bottle that up and take it with them the rest of the season.
And part of what has made Minnesota so good this year is this is a team that rarely turns it over.
Yep.
They turn it over fewer than 10 times per game. It was the 3rd fewest in the Big Ten going into that game last night. We got some real low turnover teams in this conference, as you know. So that's pretty impressive. They really sped up Minnesota. I had Minnesota against Iowa this weekend and talked a lot with Ben Johnson about controlling tempo and not letting teams speed them up because they don't have a particularly deep bench, and they know they've got to kind of grind it out in the half court, and it just seemed like Nebraska took them out of that right away. What do you make of it from Minnesota's point of view?
Jamison Battle can't have a half where he doesn't score and supposed to be successful in a game. Peyton Willis didn't have that great of a half. Those 2 guys have to play well and play exceptionally every game to give Minnesota a chance, and they did not last night. Jamison Battle got going in that second half, but it was a little too late. I still like this Minnesota team. They fight. They play hard. They're not going to break. They're going to play the entire 40 minutes. I think they can spoil some teams' season throughout the rest of the Big Ten because when they make shots, they're dangerous. But I do believe they've got to get some paint production, whether it be throwing the ball to Eric Curry or Jamison Battle, Peyton Willis getting layups, getting to the free throw line. That's 3 games in a row where they'll be plus 18 in the paint. So if they can get more paint production to go along with their shooting, what they've been shooting it pretty well, that should help them. But if you're just relying on jump shots, relying on 3-pointers, that's not always a recipe for success when you're playing against these dominant teams in the post.
That's hard. They're undersized, obviously, so that's a huge issue. Both these teams now, not where they want to be, clearly. You've been through this, a couple rough seasons that you were a part of at Purdue. You had some great seasons, too, but you know what it is to be toward the bottom. How do you kind of keep your focus here down the stretch?
Oh, yeah. My sophomore year, we lost. When it came to the final 13 games of the Big Ten season, we only won 2. So we went 2 for 11 and finished out the Big Ten, lost the Big Ten. You just wake up every single day and fight. You never know when you're going to get one. You never know when another team may slip up. But you're still a Division I high major college basketball player, and you take it one day at a time. You play hard, you respect the game, play it the right way, you're open, you shoot it, you work on your game when you're not in practice, when you're not in a game, and you just do the things that lead for success every day. You have daily deposits of good days.
And I think both these teams are doing that, right? I mean, I do think, like, they're again, we had the one kind of aberrational game from Nebraska, but they had played a lot of teams really close. Minnesota has been in most of the games they played, and I think Minnesota, they've had the most difficult schedule in the Big Ten to this point. They look at their schedule down the stretch and see 2 games against Penn State and 2 games against Northwestern and have to think, hey, we could win some of those. We could be in those games. So we shall see. Again, 2 teams that both needed a win last night, and Nebraska able to come out of there and grab it. Wisconsin's had a lot of All-Americans in the Bo Ryan, Greg Gard era, from Devin Harris to Frank Kaminsky and Ethan Happ, but none of them have averaged 20 points per game. Johnny Davis is over that mark right now, trying to become the first Badger to finish above that benchmark since Michael Finley in 1995. It has been a while. Johnny Davis joining us now. He is our big interview. And Johnny, let's start with Tuesday night. You guys went to Michigan State and got a win, a game in which you never trailed. And obviously you were fabulous. You had 25 points, and you've been slumping a little bit personally. So what did it mean for you guys to go in there and get the win, and for you to have the kind of game that you had been having earlier in the year?
I think it was a huge win for us, put us back in a tie for first place. And, I think it was a really good game for me just because, I could kind of get my rhythm back, my mojo, as you could say. But I thought my teammates did a really good job of, knocking down shots early in the game to take all the focus away from me.
This team was picked 10th, not in the nation, but in the Big Ten in the preseason. You are currently ranked 14th in the country. To what extent were you guys aware of and motivated by the pundits?
We were definitely aware of what, other people were saying about us and how we were going to be. We didn't really let that affect us at all, though. We just, come into every game thinking that we're going to win and, play it one day at a time.
I was saying to you while we were in the break, I called that game against Penn State on Saturday and was talking to Joe Krabenhoff and to Coach Gard before the game, and they both really raved about how well connected this team is. To what do you attribute that? Why is there maybe a different chemistry than there was a year ago?
I would say just because of all the seniors we lost last year. I think there was about 6 or 7 of them. Brad was the one that decided to stay, which, I think was a good decision for him because he helps. I think he's one of the main people that helps the team gel together. But just because of all the, recruits that we have coming in and all the transfers we had, it kind of just, everybody was new and kind of unfamiliar with the new territory. So I think it made it a lot easier for us to, sync together.
You mentioned Brad Davison, and he, as you are certainly well aware, can be a bit of a polarizing figure throughout the Big Ten. But every time I talk to people internally at Wisconsin, they just rave about him as a teammate. What makes him such a good teammate?
His competitiveness. He's attacking every day like it's his last. And he's definitely one of those guys where you want him to be on your team, but you never want to play against him. He's just that type of guy.
That's for sure. What has this ride been like for you? I mean, last year you were a role player on this Wisconsin team, and now you are a full-fledged superstar that people are talking about as Big Ten Player of the Year, potentially National Player of the Year. Take yourself back a year, and if someone would have said to you, this is what it's going to look like what has that ride been like?
I never could have imagined it myself, but, it's just all about being patient. Last year it wasn't my turn. It was a senior-led team. I just did whatever I could to, help the team be as good as they could be, but I had to step into a larger role this year.
Well, you have certainly done that. You played on the FIBA Under-19 national team this summer, a team that won a gold medal. How did that experience help you make the jump that you've made?
It was great. Being able to make the final roster of, the top 30 guys in the nation, it just helped me realize that, I'm a good basketball player and that I need to start giving myself more confidence.
How did that manifest itself? Like when you're going up against some of these guys, was there a moment where you said, hey, I can hang with these guys, or was it a more gradual thing?
It was just, attacking every practice like it was a game. Obviously, I had something to work for to be able to make the final roster, but no, I would probably say it's just, right when I found out I made the team, obviously it was very thrilling and exciting. I called my parents right away, but, when I came back to Madison after that gold medal run, I just realized that I was going to need to bring, more confidence in myself to the team if we were going to be where we're at right now.
Coach Gard raves about your competitiveness. Where does that competitiveness come from?
I would say it comes from me playing against my twin brother, Jordan. We were raised to be competitive against each other and against other people, but, I think that real competitive instinct came from playing with him and, just attacking each other every day.
I am a parent of twins myself, so I'm always kind of fascinated by that world. What's in your mind the best part of being a twin?
The best part of being a twin is, if I get blamed for something or something goes wrong, I usually just pin it on him.
Now that is familiar. We've had a lot of that in my house. There must be some sort of twin handbook that you get, which at the very front page says, hey, here's a good way to get out of things. Just blame it on the other one. Mm-hmm. What's the worst part? Exactly right. What's the worst part of being a twin?
The worst part is you got to share everything. Whether it's clothes, food. It's always got to be an equal amount for the two of you.
Yeah, and you don't even get your own birthday, for goodness sake, right? Like your one special day. Yeah. Take us through your recruitment, because I do think this was really interesting, and I remember following this a little bit, more so maybe after you guys committed and just kind of familiarizing myself with it. But you were a high major recruit. I mean, you had people kind of falling all over you. And Jordan was a little bit less so. It was more, he was kind of being seen as a mid-major, and the high majors were kind of taking the wait-and-see approach. And then Coach Gard offered him. So what was that like when it went from hey, it's just we might have to split up, to you had the potential to play together?
Well, first off, Jordan, I think if he didn't get hurt his sophomore and senior year of high school, I think he would have been, a highly touted football recruit. He basketball and football is kind of equal for him, but after he got injured, my parents said, no more football. You can't risk it anymore. And, obviously he was a very good basketball player too, but, he just wasn't getting that attention he deserved. And when Coach Gard offered him and we both had the opportunity to play together, well, we weren't going to be able to turn that down.
You mentioned football, and you were an awfully good football player yourself. You accounted for 90 touchdowns in high school, and Jordan was your star wide receiver, as you said. I found it interesting here in recent years with Wisconsin that they've had this run of basketball players who are high school football players, and specifically high school quarterbacks, right? Demetric Trice and Brad Davison. What are the parallels, do you think, between being a football quarterback and playing basketball?
Playing basketball in the Big Ten, I would say, is, just compared to the physicality of football. Every night, you're getting bumps and bruises, you're getting knocked down to the floor. And I think football does a really good job of just, being able to help me maintain that physicality. And, in being a QB, when you get the ball under the, big decision, big pressure situations, it's a lot easier for me because I'm used to it.
I read that you broke your ankle in 6th grade. How did that impact your abilities on the football field and on the basketball court? Because the article I read, you kind of attributed it to helping make you a better basketball player. How so?
Well, I broke my ankle playing football, and my dad didn't think I was hurt. He just thought I was being kind of a wimp. So I think I was trying to play basketball on it for about a month or two afterwards, and then, finally he took me in. And just a little slight fracture. But when I came back, I knew that, being in a cast really sucked because I wasn't able to play basketball and do what I love. And when I came back, it just made me want to, get in the gym every day and work that much harder.
Well, I'd say it worked out. You mentioned your dad. He was a 14-year pro. He played briefly in the NBA and played all over the world, really. It's pretty amazing to chart his journey. How did his guidance influence you and Jordan to kind of become the players that you are?
He just told us every day that, you guys can do whatever you want. But I think, he knew that we were going to eventually be basketball players. But we played every sport when we were younger. We kind of just drew more to basketball because that's what his profession was. And I think me and Jordan just want to follow in the same footsteps that, he did.
I want to get back to the team as we wrap things up here. Your record in close games is remarkable. I mean, you guys are 11-1 in games decided by 6 points or fewer. How is this team able to kind of maintain its composure, I should say, down the stretch and pull out all of these close games?
I would say that's our defense. We pride ourselves on playing defense because you can control your intensity and effort on the defensive end. You can't control if the ball goes in the hole or not. So I would say just our ability to be able to, lock down on, the defensive end and be able to make, tough shots or big shots in crunch time is what makes us so lethal in late game situations like that are closer.
You guys are in a tie for first place here as we head down the stretch with Illinois and Purdue, and yet it seems like everyone's talking about those two have separated themselves. Those are the two best teams in the Big Ten. What's your thought as you hear those types of conversations and even being where you are and even having won the games you've won? I mean, going into Mackey and beating Purdue, and yet there still seems to be this kind of reticence to count Wisconsin among that group.
That's other people's opinions. I don't really care about anybody else's opinion but my own. And besides, the season's not over yet. We still got Purdue again, so, anything could happen, but we're just taking it one day at a time, one game at a time. All
right, well, that next game coming up this weekend against Rutgers. Johnny Davis, thanks so much for your time. Really a pleasure getting to know you a bit.
Yep, thank you.
So that is Johnny Davis. We go from one superstar to another. Caitlin Clark was in action last night. We simply would not be doing our job if we did not show you how she fared, plus Rapheal on what makes her so great. The Big Ten's version of must-see TV back on the court last night as Iowa's Caitlin Clark put on another show in the Hawkeyes' 10-point win over Minnesota. 32 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, marked her 8th 30-point game of the season. Came on the heels of her amazing showing Sunday in a loss to Michigan, where she had 46 points, including a few logo threes. She had 25 in the fourth quarter alone, which I can't get over. You extrapolate that out, that's 100 points in a game. But anyway, you have repeatedly said on social media that she's your favorite player. Why?
She just plays the game the right way. She has confidence, she's poised, she gets her teammates involved, and then I love how she works on her game. When I started enjoying watching Caitlin play was just simply watching a pregame warm-up, maybe 3 hours before the game. You see her on the court shooting half-court shots, and they're going in, and they're in rhythm. And that's when I said, that's must-see TV. And she does it night in and night out. And it's so hard to have back-to-back good games in college basketball. And she's not only doing that, she's doing it at a very high level.
Yeah, I think, look, there are lots of great players out there, but this is a transcendent player, and for me, she is transcendent because of the range, right? I mean, look, she's an incredible passer, and I do think, like, the way that she gets her teammates involved, but I mean, you know, some of these, I mean, look at that. Like, no one shoots the ball from there, Rapheal, of any gender.
Yes.
And I think that's, I mean, that one there, like, that's a 35-footer. So, and they're in rhythm. How hard is that?
It's extremely hard. She's the definition of you have to guard her in the parking lot. I mean, she has her head up. When she can see the basket, it's almost like she gets the utmost confidence that it's going to go in. And when you're guarding someone with that type of confidence, it puts you at limitations because you know their skill set. You think about her January, 30 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. But just in February through 3 games, she's averaging 35 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists again, shooting the ball 54% from the field. It's almost like it's unguardable at points in the game because when you can step across half court, I think Carson Edwards, no more. It's all about Caitlin Clark. She plays the game in a fun way, and I love how she keeps her teammates involved and the way she encourages them and they encourage her back.
Right. I mean, I think what was interesting was in watching some of the social media reaction, like kind of, you know, when people put out, well, this is what she did, and you saw those logo threes and stuff. From Sunday, underneath it, people are saying, well, is that a smart way to play? Why is she shooting from that far out? And then the reaction was, have you seen her numbers? Like, have you seen her percentages? Like, you're telling me it's not a smart way to play if you're hitting 50% of your threes and you're shooting from 35 feet? Of course it's a smart way to play. Like, anyone would take 3 points. So, yeah, I do think that's what's so remarkable about her is she's a great passer. She includes her teammates. All that stuff's amazing. And, man, you want to talk about a team to watch here down the stretch. And let's make no bones about it. You know, Michigan's ahead of them in the standings. Indiana's ahead of them in the standings. They're not the best team in the Big Ten, but they've got Michigan at the very last regular season game, which is going to be incredible. They have Maryland and Indiana coming up here these next couple games. So it is so worthwhile watching her. I mean, she's amazing. Big Ten Player of the Year race is really fascinating. You have a 3-way tie for first place in the league, as we've talked about, and all 3 of those teams have at least one superstar. There's one that probably has multiple superstars, but Purdue's Jaden Ivey, Illinois' Kofi Coburn, Wisconsin's Johnny Davis. You see E.J. Liddell, Keegan Murray having fabulous years. I think there are probably a few others that might even tangentially be in this conversation. But how would you rank them? Let's count it down from 5 to 1. Where would you start with number 5?
I'm going E.J. Liddell. I mean, not necessarily number 5, but just in that 5.
Yeah, well, he's number 5. You know, hey, you got to stand by this. If I say where you're going with number 5 and you say E.J. Liddell first, he's number 5.
Well, E.J. Liddell, he's fought his way into this conversation. I think he deserves to be here. He's been playing well. He's a matchup nightmare for defenses. Shoot the ball 50% from field, 40% from 3, can score at 3 levels, and then he defends on the other end. 2.5 blocks at the rim, and he's only 6'7". He's not a 7-footer. He's not jumping out of the gym crazy athleticism. He has great timing, great hand skills, but he plays hard, and he plays the game the right way. He understands he's underrated in the league, undervalued in the league when it comes to those big names, and he's just been going out and putting up numbers, and I enjoy what he's been doing.
I cite this off in the Ken Pom numbers, and he has his own Player of the Year or his formula. It does factor in some defensive and mostly offensive numbers, and E.J. Liddell's the top guy in the Big Ten. So it does give you a sense of kind of statistically what he does. But again, you have so many of these players playing on unbelievable teams and kind of carrying them. So So you've got Liddell at number 5. Who would you put at number 4?
Johnny Davis. Johnny Davis obviously is one of the better players in the country. He's kind of hit a skid the last few games with the shooting percentage, with his numbers, but I still think he's one of the better players in the league. He's got this Wisconsin team that was predicted to finish 10th in the league. He's got them right there in the first place race. I still think he has a chance to win it. He just has to start getting back into his rhythm. He was able to do that in his last game. If he can continue that, it'd be tough, especially if they win the Big Ten, it'd be tough to deny him that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is someone we're talking about for National Player of the Year, too. So, again, I do think it just points out that this is an unusual year. I mean, the Big Ten has had really great players year in and year out. National Player of the Year last year, Luka Garza. But just how the depth of real quality players this year that you'd have someone who's a National Player of the Year candidate who you've got 4th right now on your Big Ten Player of the Year. Who would you put next?
And just one more thing about Johnny Davis. His intensity. He plays so hard and he competes. You see him get a bloody nose at Northwestern. He wants the ball right away to go get a bucket. So I love the way he competes at a high level. And then I got to go to big fella Kofi Cockburn. He's just dominant inside, shooting the ball 60% from the field. He's a 20 and 11 guy. He's unguardable at times if you get him close to the basket. He's starting to make good decisions out of post doubles, getting the ball to his shooters. When you have a dominant player that can win you a game, you saw him get 37 and 16 in a game. He can take over moments with 2-pointers. And that's tough to do in today's game. Getting to the free throw line, dunks, hooks. He's added a floater into his game. You saw him take a step back at the free throw line in this game. He's mixing it up, but he plays the game the right way as well. He loves to win. His guys love to be around him, and he's just extremely dominant.
It is fascinating to talk to coaches around the league, and the comparison they all bring up is Shaq when he was in college, right? That he's just so impossible to deal with when he gets that deep post position. There have been a couple of teams, obviously Purdue has the size to deal with him. Arizona did do a certain extent too, but man, he is something else. So, okay, he's number 3, so you got 2 guys left, which I would guess are Keegan Murray, Jaden Ivey in some order. Where would you go?
I go with Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray, he slipped in some people's ranking. I still think he's one of the better players in the country. He's a walking bucket. He can score the ball from anywhere on the floor. He cuts hard. He offensive rebounds the basketball for putbacks. He has a quick second jump. He shoots over 35% from the three-point line. And then the thing that separates Keegan Murray from others is he defends. He defends you at an extremely high level. He takes one-on-one matchups serious. You see Jamison Battle give him 20 points earlier in the season, and then they play them again. He absolutely shuts Jamison Battle down, and then he gets asked about it. And he remembered when Jamison Battle gave him 20. I love players like that take it to heart on the defensive end. He's going to get you 2 blocks a game, going to get you a steal a game, and then he's going to get you 20 and 10. He could get you 35 and 15. He plays at such a high level that you have to play as hard as him to match his intensity to try and slow him down.
So then Jaden Ivey is first. Why is he ahead of those other guys in your estimation?
I look at the last 4 games, the level he's been playing at, averaging close to 23 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting the ball over 45% from the field, and they're winning. You look at this Purdue team and how they get it done against Illinois, it was a Jaden Ivey show in that second half. He was the best player on that floor, and it wasn't even close. And Kofi was on that floor. The way he comes off of ball screens with a head full of steam, can get to the basket. He's probably the best player in transition in the country. And then he makes his threes. He's shooting the ball over 40% from the three-point line, close to 50% from the field on the season. I think his efficiency is what separates him. But I also believe strongly that in this type of season with so many great players, the team that wins the Big Ten should at least have the player of the year candidate on their team.
Right.
I think Jaden Ivey is starting to separate himself. He's unguardable at that 2 position now.
So here's what's amazing, and I cited that KenPom Player of the Year just because I find it so interesting. Kind of, well, how do these guys measure up? If you go with pure statistics, and I don't think that's necessarily the best way to say who the best player is, but I'm just saying it's interesting. The Big Ten has 6 of the top 10. There are 2 Purdue players who are on it. Neither one of them is named Jaden Ivey.
Wow.
Right? I mean, Trevion Williams and Zach Edey. And I mean, I think Jaden Ivey's the most important player on Purdue, and clearly you do too, but it just shows you how good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, to be surrounded by 2 guys that good and again with unique skill sets. So that's probably why many people feel like they're the favorite right now.
100%.
You got 3 unbelievable players.